This box just showed up from Gabil Radio. Let's open it up and see what we have inside waiting for us. Ah, would you look at that? We have a brand new screwdriver antenna just introduced to the market. Hey everyone, I'm Bob, KD4BMG HOA Ham. Gabil Radio has been working on this for quite some time. I've been testing it for months, and I can't wait to share it with you today. You should really start paying more attention to the breadcrumbs that I leave lying around on my workbench or hanging on a post in the corner of my shack. That control box has been there for weeks, in case you haven't noticed. I've been testing and using this antenna, becoming very familiar with it because this is the first powered screwdriver antenna that I've owned. Let me tell you what we're going to do today. I'm going to describe all the various components that come with the antenna kit. I'm going to talk to you about how you tune this antenna. There are a couple of different ways that you could tune it. Throughout the video, I'll leave some demonstrations of communicating with it. I'll leave some whisper maps. I'll do some FT8. I will do some voice QSOs on single sideband. There'll be a section where I talk about, let's just call them quirks with the antenna. I don't think they're really quirks. I don't know what other word to use, but I want to point out to you, if this is the first time that you've used a screwdriver antenna, there are some things that you need to know about it because Gabil Radio has created this incredible control box that we'll probably talk about more than anything else. It's created a necessity for you to understand how that control box works and interacts with both the antenna and your radio, and I'll explain all of those to you. So stick around for everything we have to talk about today. I'll take the 5-5 New Jersey. Thanks for hunting, friend. Appreciate it. 73. This is Kilo Delta 4, Bravo Mike Golf, calling CQ from US 1880 QRZ. I've taken this antenna POTA. There you can see I had it sitting on my truck bed. My truck bed is an aluminum slat bed. I just took my Gabil MK3 tripod and put it right on top of the truck bed. I did need my radials. I thought maybe the truck bed would act as a ground plane, but no, it didn't. It still needed radials. I've had this in a chameleon ground spike here behind a palm tree in the HOA operating stealth. So let's go ahead and talk about the components of this antenna system. What do we get?
Okay, I'll be clear with Kilo Quebec 4 Yankee Oscar Victor. This is Whiskey 4 November Delta Kilo. QRZ?
Kilo Delta 4 Bravo Mike Golf.
Kilo Delta 4, Bravo Mike Golf. That's the HOA Ham, Bob, in Florida. Good to hear you again. Sounding great. I see you had a newer video out there that I watched the other day, and I'm a big subscriber of yours. Over.
Well, thanks. I'm actually testing a new screwdriver antenna here in the HOA, hiding behind the palm tree. Nobody can see it, and it just disappears. It's not on the market yet, but you're my first major contact here on 20 meters, man. You're booming here into Tampa Bay, Florida today. Over.
Yeah, thanks very much. I'm oriented towards Florida, so if I look to my right just slightly, if you're watching my video, that's south, and so that's about 45-degree broadside to the doublet antenna. And I have that leg making kind of a dog leg right because my yard at the front's not big enough. So it's projecting out towards Florida, and you're sounding great up here in Charlotte, North Carolina, Bob. You're 5'9", and
these are optional accessories. We'll talk about those in a moment. You either buy the 3/8x24 version or the UHF version. So you get one or the other. With each one, you get 2 telescoping whips, which should tell you this is not a mobile antenna, meaning you're not attaching this to your car because we don't use telescoping whips like this on our moving vehicles, but I had it on a stationary vehicle. It comes with a power cord that connects to the control box and then connects to your 12-volt battery that you normally use with your transceiver. Of course, you add your own power poles. It comes with another cable that goes from the antenna control box to this connector on the antenna. These connectors are rated at IP68. So you have some waterproof capability here. They can withstand the weather, the rain. This is not waterproof. This is with your transceiver, whether you're operating in the shack or you're operating in your vehicle or outside. Don't expose this to weather. this exposed to weather. The connectors can be exposed to weather because, well, they're IP68 rated. I'm saving this for last because it's absolutely phenomenal. Let's talk about some accessories. These are accessories that Gabil Radio will provide for sale at the same time that you would go online and purchase one of these kits. These are currently for sale on Amazon. These kits are. This is not yet. It's still in transit to the Amazon store, as well as an extension cable. So this cable itself, which will go from your antenna to the control box, is a 5-meter cable. This is only a couple of feet, so you would have your power source close to you when you connected to the control box. This extension cable is meant to basically make this a shack antenna, and that's why you see me here using this in my shack and why I put my control box up here. I was running this antenna 100 feet away because this is a 100-foot extension cable. So don't think of this as just an antenna that can only run 5 meters away from you. Convert that over to freedom units so you know how many feet that is. But you can actually get a 50-foot or a 100-foot accessory cable option from Gabil Radio and their Amazon store. So again, these are options. They don't come with the kit. You buy one antenna. You get a power cable, a control cable that goes from the control box to the antenna, and 2 whips. These whips will get you on 40 meters through 6. I think this will also do 80 meters as well. Don't expect a lot of performance on this with 80 meters, 40 meters for sure, but it can do 80 meters. We can get it resonant there, but it's a compromised antenna, so you'll make some contacts. I don't actually remember if I did FT8 on that. We'll have to check out and see, did I actually get some FT8 accomplished when I did my testing? I've been testing this for months. I actually don't remember all the tests that I've done. We'll have to see if I pulled off 80 meters. Well, there's an 80-meter whisper map. Nope, I didn't make any FT8 contacts, nor single sideband on whisper. I think we might need some help with the whip. And just so you are aware, if you already own the Gabil Radio man-pack collapsible antenna, it also works with the threads on the top of both the UHFN 3/8x24 version of their motorized screwdriver antenna. So maybe this will get me closer to 80 meters than those other telescoping whips that I was using. So let's get back and talk about this optional accessory as well as the control box. This is the brains of this system, and this Gabil knocked it out of the park. Quickly, let's just talk about this. So you already saw that this was hanging on a post on my shack. I have a shack, a desk here in the shack, a workstation, and I have poles that go vertical, and they hold my lighting, my equipment. Right now it's holding a microphone above me, and I just clamp this onto that post. This has a 1/4-20 stud on the back, and there's a 1/4-20 female threaded hole on the back of the control box. So you can use anything that you currently have 1/4-20 as a stand for this. But what this allows you to do, in addition to clamping it onto a post as I did, and then it has a ball swivel mount here so you can just spin this a number of different directions, this also acts as a workstation stand. So I'm looking at it right now, and I am seeing that at about a 45-degree angle to my face, and it's very easy for me to read and operate. So this is a very versatile accessory for clamping this to your desktop, clamping it to a post, or just using it as a desktop stand. So let's talk about this control box just a bit more, because it is the great feature of this particular antenna kit. Why do I say that this control box is a great feature for this kit? It's very straightforward. It makes this antenna system, this control box, radio agnostic. It doesn't care about brand. It doesn't care about model. Like the ATOS, you're not interacting with a specific Yaesu radio. It is not sending RF downrange and then interacting with the control box and the radio. It's simply sending a signal to the motor in the antenna to either go up or go down. So you're tuning this independent of interaction with the radio, and that's why I say it is agnostic to brand and model. You can use this with any transceiver that you have in your possession. So that's what makes this so great. It's completely agnostic to the equipment that you're using. So that also then creates, because of that great feature, some other things that you must be aware of them. 3 in particular that I'm talking about today. And the first one of those is this. If you're using this antenna, and you're going to be aware of this if you use other antennas and you're used to these types of antennas, whether they're motorized screwdrivers or not, if you use a coil antenna and you change the length of your whip, whatever you're used to tuning the length to of the coil changes because the length of your whip changes. So anomaly number 1, or feature number 1, you need to understand with this particular antenna and all screwdriver and coil antennas is if you change the size of your whip to the small, to the next longest, and even the Gabil man-pack collapsible, because the Gabil man-pack collapsible also fits the thread size on the top of this screwdriver antenna, then you're going to be changing how the coil tunes. So if you save a memory location and you change whip sizes, you're going to have to do some adjusting of the location here. So that's the first thing that you need to be aware of. Let's jump over now and actually demonstrate how you tune this antenna. I can think of 3 ways. If you, after you watch what I'm doing, think of a third one, then do mention it in the comments below. I've talked about 3 things you need to know about this antenna. The first one is the antenna length. The next one, if you're going to interchange them, the next one I'll share at the end of describing how to tune, and then shortly thereafter we'll talk about the third feature that you need to know if you're going to properly operate a screwdriver antenna, and this one in particular. There are 3 ways that I can quickly think of that you could tune this antenna. 2 of those I'm going to demonstrate using my IC705. The third way I'm going to try to demonstrate using my G90. If I can't get it to work with the G90, then I'll describe it, and you can determine if you have a radio that will work with an SWR sweep. You can see I've got a pretty strong signal coming through right now. Band conditions are terrible today, and this is not even yet tuned up on 20 meters. This is the cable that's going to the screwdriver antenna outside. I am completely independent of any shack grounding. I'm running off of battery. Nothing is connected to my grounding system, so I'm operating right now as though I was portable, say POTA, or in the backyard without going through my shack. On a future video, I will absolutely show you how to set this up as a permanent antenna for your shack, whether or not you're in an HOA. Today, I'm focusing how to tune this if you're doing portable operations. So we're going to tune it with an analyzer, and then we're going to tune it as though all you had was your radio. So the antenna switch here is going to do something. You don't have to have an antenna switch. It's just the way that I'm going to demonstrate it today. I recognize this is busy. Try to keep your focus here. Right now the antenna is very close to its bottomed out position. I don't know if it's all the way down. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But I do have power going to my battery. Here's my distribution block. I've got power coming in to this control box, and I've got power obviously coming to my radio. So let's go ahead and power on. The on-off switch is right here on the top. And now you can see here we're powered up and we're at 0. This is seconds. How many seconds has this traveled up or down? So right now, the antenna switch is on the radio. Let's take the antenna switch to my analyzer. And let's turn my analyzer on. I'm hoping, yep, it's coming through up there. On my overhead cam, let's see, I'm going to do an SWR chart, and I'm going to, let's see where it is. That's already on 20 meters. So what I can do here is I can do a continuous sweep on this. You can see right now I'm 3-to-1. And what I can do is let's see here, I can go ahead and start pressing my up button and watch what happens to my analyzer. So let's do that. Here I'm going to start pressing up. Keep your eyes on the analyzer and watch when this thing comes to a resonance that we're okay with. This could take a couple of seconds, but just hang with me. And you can see right now nothing's happening with the radio. My wife is running the washing machine. I see some blips going across here. Not exactly sure what that's coming from. But we're focused on this on 22 seconds. You can see my SWR starting to come down. Watch, we're going to hit a dip here in just a second. Getting close. How close are we going to get? Oh, I should, keep pressing up. Looks like I let go of the up button. Here we go. Here comes the dip. It's coming right. There's the dip. See it? Bingo. We are at about 1.2 to 1 on the analyzer. And I can just press this for a second and you'll see it shifts the resonance spot on the analyzer. So if I was choosing to work at a park and I took this really small antenna switch with me, I can use my analyzer, and now all of a sudden I switch back and I am on my radio. Again, the bands are trashed today, so don't pay any attention to what the radio screen looks like because I can't hear anybody today. One of the worst days we've had here in Tampa Bay in a long time. So let's go ahead and let's turn this off. Let's turn this back to home. If you press home, it's going to travel all the way back down to the very bottom, meaning its starting point. So this is seconds elapsed. This no longer is relevant. We're going to go ahead and turn our analyzer off. But I do have the antenna switch on the analyzer. The second way that we're going to demonstrate tuning this is using the FM on the radio, and we're going to watch our SWR here. So let's go ahead and make sure that we're already at low power. Yeah, we're at 1%, so I'm at 1 watt out. I'm back to 0 position. Let's go ahead and switch back over to radio. Let's choose FM, and what I'm doing here is I'm going to send a carrier down the antenna and watch my SWR. So here is my SWR reading right here on the radio. And once I key up, now I'm going to unkey because I don't want to talk while I'm doing this because I don't really want to be talking across the airwaves right now, but let's go ahead and start tuning. KD4BMG testing. So I am now pressing the up button. You can see my elapsed time, and of course you can see in the FM mode that my voice is traveling out with 1 watt. KD4BMG testing. Keep your eye on the SWR. Again, you're doing this with low wattage. See, the SWR is already coming down. KD4BMG testing. And if you can see there towards the end, we were about close to 1 to 1. Let's go over to single sideband. We're at 14.30349. KD4BMG testing. Are you watching the SWR meter here? Watch it on my IC705. KD4BMG testing. So that's how you can tune this antenna. Now, what do you do once you've tuned the antenna? You can see there are memory positions here. So what I will do when I tune this, I've already done it for the shack. I have all the frequencies, all the bands tuned into this in the memory modes. I'm just demonstrating today how you would create one for the first time. But say, for example, you wanted to save 6 meters, 10 meters, 15, 17, 20. And did I miss something? 6, 10, 12, 15, 17, 20. Yeah, 6. Position 6. So here's how I save it. I'm just going to press and hold and watch this flash. All right, there where it flashed. Now I am saved in that memory position in spot number 6. So the next time I turn this on, my antenna is back at 0 position. Then all I need to do is press the 6 button and it's always going to raise to that same location based on the elapsed number of seconds. So you would do that for all of the bands that you wanted to tune to and save in one of the 10 memory locations. So let me show you the third way that you would tune this, let's say with a G90, if I can get that to work. And then we're going to jump over and we're going to talk about, remember the main feature on this radio, this antenna system is this control box that makes tuning to a frequency, a band, so simple. But that feature creates 3 situations that you must be completely aware of, and we'll talk about that after I show you the G90 tuning. I'll show you the second feature that you need to be aware of. The third way I'm aware of doing a tune for this type of antenna is using a radio that has an SWR sweep feature, kind of like the G90 does. Some of the other Xiegu radios have this. I don't have this feature on any of my other radios. I've never used this feature before. Today is the first time I've ever used it on my G90. So I've got my G90 turned on and I am looking directly at the G90 screen. I've initiated the continuous sweep. Now, let's see what happens when we start tuning up. I am on 14 meters. I should say I'm on 20 meters, 14 megahertz, and let's see if the SWR starts to come in the range that we would expect to see as I continue tuning here. The line is moving on the screen. It was in the mid 20s, 25 to 30, that we had a really good SWR with this particular antenna, and I'm going to stop there at 25 seconds. Look at that sweep across the G90. We're in pretty good shape. Now, something to realize while you're tuning this antenna, once you get to a certain point, you can save a memory. Remember, you press and hold till the screen flashes. Now you've saved a memory. But let's say you get somewhere and you want to go ahead and you want to fine tune things, or maybe you change one location to another. We all know that everything affects everything. So if you have a memory tuned into your memory control box here, which is the great feature, and you get somewhere and your SWR is off, all you need to do is go to that memory location and you can fine tune it on the spot. There's nothing stopping you from doing a fine tune. You don't have to go and completely trash all of your memories and resave them again. You can just do a fine tune after you select the memory location for the band that you wanted to operate. So the best feature about this antenna system is absolutely this. It makes the whole antenna and the tuning agnostic to the radio, and that's what's awesome. Doesn't care about brand, doesn't care about model. It tunes based on the number of seconds, the elapsed time that you're raising or lowering the antenna, and then you save that to these memory locations. So in other words, it's not sending a signal downrange, except when you're doing the initial testing. The initial testing and setup, meaning the initial SWR readings, I found with my analyzer. And at that point, it was disconnected from my radio. And then the second situation, when I actually tuned the antenna using my radio and the FM mode, I was sending a signal downrange. What happens when you're not sending a signal downrange and you go to tune this antenna? Let's say that I want to go back to memory 6. I'm actually in memory 6 right now, but let's say I want to go home or I want to go to one of the other memory locations. Well, here's what happens with your radio. I'm going to go home now. Well, let's just go down. All right, do you see the feedback that's coming across my radio? There's feedback. Let me explain what that feedback is. Well, because I'm not sending any carrier downrange, the coax line is available to pick up anything that it can read or hear or sense. The motor that's driving this antenna up and down has feedback. And so you're getting feedback into the radio from the motor. Well, why doesn't that happen on an ATOS? Well, if you tune an ATOS with your Yaesu-specific radio, it's sending a carrier downrange, and therefore there can't be any feedback into the radio. Why doesn't this happen with the Tar Heel antenna? Well, if I understand how Tar Heel works, I don't own one, but I believe Tar Heel does the same thing. It's sending a signal downrange to do the tuning back and forth, and therefore it can't have any feedback into the radio. Here we're not sending a signal back and forth when we're using a memory location, or I am just pressing the up, the down, or the home button, and I'm not sending a carrier with my microphone here. So it allows feedback to come into the radio. So that could be confusing to you if you're not sure what's going on. So what can you do about that? Well, you can do a couple of different things. If you use an analyzer and you take a switch with you, well, just take your switch and move it off the radio. The radio doesn't see any feedback whatsoever. Well, if you don't want to take an antenna switch with you, an extreme situation, you could just turn the radio off, which why would you want to do that? That seems inconvenient. You could disconnect the antenna. Again, that seems really inconvenient. I want an easy way to do this. When I'm out doing POTA and I programmed in 10, 12, 15, 17, 20, and 40, and I want to quickly press a memory button, I don't want this feedback into my radio, what am I going to do? Well, when you're in single sideband, you hear the feedback. If you go into FM mode, you do get feedback into the radio, but you don't hear anything. So you could go into one of the other modes to get rid of the noise, or if you're in single sideband, well, you can just turn down the volume and then you don't have to worry about it whatsoever. So this is just an anomaly that is part of this because the features of this control box make the antenna that you can tune it with any brand, any model. It doesn't send RF down once you start using the memory locations, and then you're going to get some feedback if you leave it connected in single sideband mode. So you have a couple of ways that you can address that. You need to choose how you're going to address that based on the radio that you have. I got that feedback in my 7300, my 705, my 991A, as well as my FX4CR. My 7300 really didn't like it. So I just turned my antenna switch, and then it didn't really matter. Now for me, when I set this up in my shack permanently, which is where my 7300 resides, well, I have antenna switches here that I'm always flipping back and forth. So that's how I will handle this in my shack when I use this as a permanent QTH antenna. Again, I'll show you how to do that in the future. So that's the second feature that occurs as a result of having such a fantastic control box that lets this be agnostic to the radio. I just want you to be aware of it so you could be prepared for it and know how to address it. I have high expectations for an antenna like this to work extraordinarily well 6 through 40. 80 meters, if I make any contacts, that's just a bonus, but I absolutely want to be making contacts at will on 6 through 40. And when I look at my whisper maps on 10 meters, 20 meters, and 40 meters, that's exactly what I see for coverage on this antenna. When I look at FT8 on 40 meters, you can see on PSK Reporter that I have very good coverage. I am hearing as well as being heard. 20 meters was just an absolute piece of cake. So this antenna is performing exactly like I would expect it to. This was occurring while I was at my QTH. This control box is the compelling reason to own this screwdriver antenna. It's a differentiator. It makes it usable, it is agnostic to brand and radio model, and that's fantastic. There are 3 things I told you to think through as you own this screwdriver antenna. 1, as you change whip sizes, then you're going to need to touch up your tuning. You can do that with a little bit of touch up in the up-down, or you can completely save a new memory location. The second thing was that feedback issue, and once you understand that, then you'll know how to adjust your setup to compensate for that. The third thing is this. What happens if your antenna itself, the coil, and your control box get out of sync? I can't think of a scenario whereby that would happen to you, but it did happen to me one time. Understand, I've been testing this for probably longer than 6 months. I've had multiple versions of the screwdriver antenna and multiple versions of the control box. And it would seem at some point during that 6 months, one time during my testing, I picked up a control box that was at 0, but an antenna that was partially extended. So if this could ever happen to you, I just want you to be aware of that anomaly and what you would do about it. It's very easy to solve. For example, I have an antenna here that is completely in the home position, but my control box thinks it is at 35.1 seconds raised. How would you do that? What would you compensate for to get these two back in sync with each other? Now, when you remove power from this, it has a memory. That's why I'm saying I don't know how it happened. I must have picked up one control box from one kit and an antenna from another kit. That's the only thing I can think that happened. But shouldn't happen to you. If it does, this is what you do. It's extraordinarily simple. So let's just disconnect the antenna. So the control box has power still, and the antenna has no power going to it because I have the control cable right here. So just hit your home button, and it's going to zero itself out. And right now my antenna is zeroed out. So as soon as this gets back to 0, it will be in sync with where the antenna is currently sitting in the home position. So I'm just going to move on to the next clip because you don't need to listen to me ramble for 15 seconds to make that stop. Let's move on to the next scenario. So the next scenario would be my control box is in the 0 position, but my antenna is raised. How do I get this back to home when I don't have any seconds left to lower this? Well, we just go back and we trick the setup again. So let's do the same thing. Let's disconnect our antenna and let's arbitrarily, let's just go up maybe 15 seconds here, and then that'll give us the opportunity to bring the control box back down. I think I have a package delivered. Hopefully that's another antenna. Actually it is. And it's also Gabil. That one's going to blow your mind. So, all right, let's reconnect our antenna. Now, you're going to want to have this in your presence when you do this. Again, this should never happen, but if you do, you're going to want to make sure you don't drive this back to home and then just keep driving the motor when it's already at home. You're going to overtax that motor and potentially harm it. So you want this in your presence. Now, listen, as soon as I hit the down button, you're going to hear the motor moving the antenna back down, because I'm going to use the down button. And then I'm going to watch when the antenna stops retracting, and I'm going to immediately release the down button. Here we go. So you can probably see the end of the UHF connector moving towards the antenna body. Right there, it just stopped. So it is now in the home position, and I've got 5.2 seconds left, right? What are we going to do? We're just going to disconnect the antenna and we're going to go home. And now everybody is happy. 0 on the control box, home position on the antenna. Again, this should never happen to you. I think I understand why it happened to me. I had multiple components, testing them all over the last 6 months, and one time I got some of my components mixed up. If you do find yourself with that anomaly, now you know what to do about it. No need to panic. There's a simple solution for it. So what do I think of the new Gabil radio screwdriver antenna, the GRA-AT330, which comes in both 3/8 by 24 as well as UHF. The 3/8 by 24 is in the backyard right now doing some work for me on some other testing, some new amplifiers I'm looking at. Well, if you've watched the channel for any length of time, you know that I only have so much time available, and therefore I'm pretty picky about the videos that I do. I'm fortunate that way. And if I'm not really excited about something, I don't spend any time on it. I'm pretty excited about this because I think it is a really full-featured antenna system, and this control box is just a compelling feature to be able to take, a compromised antenna. That's what coil screwdriver antennas are, but you can be multi-banded with them and have memory locations set here, and that is a very compelling feature. I don't own a screwdriver antenna prior to this one, a powered screwdriver antenna, but as I have heard other people talk about them, I look at their control boxes. Many of them are 100% manual. You are tuning every time. Here you tune with a control box that is brand and model agnostic. That is the compelling feature here. And then you can sit in a POTA operation, under a shade tree and just press your buttons and move from band to band that you want to operate while you're there. For me here in the HOA, like I said, I've had this hiding behind the palm tree. I'll show you that QTH setup here shortly, and that's allowed me to operate 6 through 40 completely stealth. No one ever knows, and I'm able to band hop to my heart's content. So very reasonably priced, really good quality coming from Gabil Radio. I think this is a fantastic antenna system. So that's my thought on it. Got some other new and exciting things coming from Gabil Radio. I'm going to go open up that package right now. Talk to you soon, friends. 73.